people in our church better, and yeah, just know how to be the church in Wenatchee.
Yeah. You, sir, yes.
Me? Oh, I'm Michael John, and I'm happy to announce that we got the camera going just now.
I'm Constantine. I don't have any expectations, so I'm really excited to hear and participate. Just been trying to enrich myself.
I'm James, and I'm excited to listen to see what we can learn tonight about how we can help our parish grow and develop the church.
Thanks for being here, John.
I'm Sania, and I'm also really excited. I feel like as a church, we have a lot of excitement and enthusiasm and need somewhere to focus that towards. And culturally, I see a lot of enthusiasm and curiosity about Orthodoxy in general. And I want to make sure that we are available for all those curious hearts out there that need stuff.
All those fish that are jumping into the boat right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm Magdalene, and I think I just want to maybe learn how to make the newer people coming in feel welcome.
Yes, really important.
I'm Elizabetha. I communicate the Orthodox to the public, to people, friends, work co-workers, and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Theodore, and I'd like to see our parish to grow like a community outside the liturgical space and be like a family and a village, you know.
Yeah.
So that's my dream.
By the way, where did you fellowship?
Where do we fellowship?
Yeah.
There's a house over there next door, gotcha.
It's a small space.
That's how we get
It's really
Very
small.
small.
That's how we get to know each other. My name is Andrew. My name is Andrew, and I am looking for the roadmap, the vision, and that's why I'm here. I'm very encouraged by this concept that we will have. We give other people that maybe aren't super involved the confidence to plug into something that's, in the right direction.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew.
My name is Scott Michael, and I'm hoping to do this weekend that we can gain a better direction for reaching our community better and growing our parish, not just externally but also within the parish itself.
Yeah, great.
I'm Joseph, and I'm here to see what I can learn.
But we did your icons on the wall. There's Uncut Mountain?
Uncut Mountain, they made them all match and so forth.
Right.
I picked those various scenes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Kurt Joseph, and new enough Orthodoxy that I'm wanting to explore and find ways to plug in and
Great.
make my faith more active.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm Eric. I'm just here because I'm curious about the vision and to learn to be a part of the community.
Great.
I'm Steven. Kind of twofold reasons, I guess. One is I'm new to the parish here, new to this parish, so just looking to get more involved and meet more people. And then two, just to see how we can open more people up to Orthodoxy and learn how to bring those conversations up to people who don't know about it.
That might require another weekend.
I'm Paul Joseph, so I'm here today to see what we can do as a parish to help grow our parish and community.
Great. Welcome.
I'm Latrina, and I'm here to participate. However,
I'm Michael, and there's a lot of really beautiful things going on in our church life, and it would be nice to continue to do those things and to do them better.
I'm Joel. The CAD came in. Really looking forward to learning about the vision and mission of the church.
Good. Welcome. Great. Thanks, Ed.
I'm Justin. I'm just here also to learn, and been here to many different places, so I want to see this continue to grow. And then also just I want to support this so we keep doing these more and more.
Great.
I'm Simeon, and I guess we'll just be here.
You got a big day on Sunday, Simeon.
I'm Sarah, and I'm just excited to go through this process here and grow together as this community and work on outreach.
Great. Now, were you one of the videos on the website?
No.
No, he's not.
Oh, no, my sister is.
Who? There you go. Brother Michael, Chris, what do you hope to gain?
I hope to gain more parishioners. No, I actually am I would like to gain the knowledge of what our people think about where we are and where we should be going. And the constitution of our parish, the makeup has changed a great deal in the last few years, and we have a bunch of people coming in, and somebody used the word cohesive, and I'm hoping that we can integrate ourselves as a community and kind of have a strong foundation so that, we're not overwhelmed by so many new people that there's no one to guide them.
So I think just reflecting on Father Evans' book, and he asked the question, like, if we cease to exist tomorrow, right, as the church in Wenatchee, would anyone even know, right? And what, who are we, right? And so I think that's what I want a clear vision of, to maybe distill that and have something concrete that we can say this is who we are, and this is how we're going to engage with our community.
All right. So, I am Father Jerry, and what I hope to do in our time together is to set you on a path, a journey that leads you forward positively. And it's really a path that is never ending. But it is a hero's journey. It's going to require heroic efforts. It's a difficult journey. It's going to be a long journey. Like Moses, there might be some who don't reach the promised land, but others will. And future generations will be blessed by your efforts this evening and tomorrow. It's a journey that will require a great deal of commitment on your part, vulnerability, honesty, thoughtfulness, self-reflection. And it's going to be it's an interesting process. If you've ever visited and watched a blacksmith at work, there's that process where he picks up a cold piece of lead, right? And he puts it into the fire. And that fire has to be 1200 degrees to turn that piece of lead into a malleable piece of lead, right? Now, that piece of lead doesn't stay in that 1200 degree fire all the time. There's this process where there's heating and cooling, and then there's pounding. There's times when that piece of lead is oozy, and then it gets put into the water and it gets further shaped. There's a tempering process. So that's kind of what this journey is like. There are going to be times when you're in the fire and then there'll be cooling. But we have to get to that place where change can happen. Where change can happen. During our time together, I'll be asking you questions and asking you to question things that may be uncomfortable, even irritating. But I liken it to a natural pearl. The way a natural pearl is formed, right? A natural pearl is formed when an irritant, usually a parasite, finds its way into the oyster. And then the oyster, in defense, puts out this fluid that coats the irritant. And this process continues until layers and layers of that fluid called nacre coats that parasite, that irritant, and produces a pearl. I like to use this with my bishop all the time. I am his irritant. I love the church, and I want to see the church healthy. I want to see parishes healthy. So it's important to do the right things right. And we're going to talk a lot about that this evening and tomorrow. Nothing I'm going to do or say will go against the deep theological, beautiful, life-giving, saving, and eternal truths of our Orthodox faith. I want to reassure you of that. Because sometimes people wonder, what business does the church have to do in doing strategic planning or doing visioning? But just know that nothing I do or say is going to impact the faith in a negative way, okay? Father Evan tells a story about an Anglican priest who became Orthodox and an Orthodox priest, and attended the first kind of diocese assembly. You have diocese assemblies, right? So in this diocese assembly, there was a lot of talk, hours of talk about things, business things and forums and stuff like that. And Father Evan was thinking to himself, this poor guy, his first assembly, and this is what we're talking about. So he goes over to him after the assembly and introduces himself, welcomes him, and says, I'm sorry about all this. He goes, no, this was great. He says, for the last 20 years, I've gone to these assemblies and had to defend the divinity of Christ. You guys talk about forms. The divinity of Christ is not debatable. That's wonderful. Right? Right, so we won't be debating the divinity of Christ tonight or tomorrow. Having said that, much of what has happened to the church has been obscured by layers and layers of confusion and chaos. It's kind of been a drift away from what the church truly is and what its purpose in existing is, right? So I asked that question that Chris mentioned at a parish council meeting once. And I said, what would people miss if we close our doors tomorrow? And of course, the first entry is our festival or Greek food, right? That's what we're known for, right? That's not what we should be known for, right? So, what happened? How did we get there? And how do we kind of restore? Any questions about that, by the way? All right. So, some preliminary thoughts, considerations. Remember, I said I was going to ask a question. So, are your best years ahead of you or behind you? Something to think about. Do you have a positive view of change? Do you have a positive or negative view of growth? Do we view it as necessary? Do we think it's a priority? Is pruning a good thing? Are you prepared for resistance, even sabotage, discomfort, turbulence? That is short comment. No. Yeah. Right, the example is a supersonic plane approaching, breaking the sound barrier, begins to shake violently. The pilot has two choices: throttle forward, throttle back. So pilots are trained to throttle, at that moment, to throttle forward. Most of us do the opposite when we experience resistance. Edwin Freeman talks about this as a failure of nerve that dooms leaders. Something to be thinking about. Are we willing to acknowledge that the landscape has changed? I was ordained 28 years ago. I was in seminary 35 years ago. At seminary, I was trained a certain way. It was about the people in the pews. And I became a proud member of the Hatch, Match, and Dispatch Club when I graduated from seminary. The landscape was pretty familiar. It was well known. I knew what to expect. That was 35 years ago. Has the landscape changed? Several years ago, I was looking at the landscape going forward and thinking to myself, the seminary did not prepare me for what's going on right now. A lot of change was happening. The environment was volatile. It was uncertain. There was a lot of ambiguity. And as a priest, I got worried. Would I be up to the challenge that the new environment, the new landscape put upon me? I read a book at that time, and the opening chapter of the book, the author introduces a book on leadership, said that 1,500 Protestant pastors were quitting every month because the landscape was changing. They didn't feel like, they were throwing in the towel, basically, because of what was going on. I grew up on the East Coast, and we only spent a little bit of time on Lewis and Clark. But my wife grew up on the West Coast, and I know that she spent more time learning about Lewis and Clark, because on the West Coast, there's a lot of Lewis and Clark stuff happening, in Oregon especially, right? So Lewis and Clark, as you know, set out. They were tasked with discovering a water route to the Pacific. And so they assembled a team, and that team was made up of canoers. Made sense, right? Water passage, rivers, so forth. And so they set out, and with this group of canoers, it was approaching winter, and they were in the area of the Rockies, and they reached this place called the Lemhi Pass. And again, winter was upon them. And instead of finding any sort of a water passage, any sort of river or whatever, they found the Rocky Mountains. In that moment, they had a choice: adapt or die. And so Lewis and Clark had the adaptive capacity to turn those canoers into mountaineers. And it saved their lives. It saved the mission. They had to turn their canoes into something else so they can make it over those mountains and find their way to the coast, Pacific Ocean. By the way, the book recommendation for y'all is the book Canoeing the Mountains by Todd Bolsinger, who happened to be the person that teaches my doctoral program. That book really woke something up in me. I realized that in that moment I had to acquire new learning and new skills and new tools. I had to adapt. Yeah, there'd still be people in the pews that I could minister to. But there's a whole group of other people that I would miss, that I would exclude. So I had to gain greater capacity as a priest. And I think that's what our parishes are like too. I mean, for one thing, Lewis and Clark were chosen because they were really good using maps. But at a certain point of that mission, there's no map. The territory is uncharted. So I think this is the position we are as parishes. In front of us is a lot of uncharted territory. So do we have the capacity to adapt? And to say, the landscape has changed, and I need to do things differently. We need to do things differently. So let's talk about some potential barriers or obstacles that might impede us on this journey, on this path. Things that stand in the way, potentially can stand in the way. I'm just going to go through a list of potential obstacles and barriers. If there's one of these that maybe resonates and might be the case you think for you all here, just write it down and we can talk about it. So, there's the Daddy parish where everyone runs to Daddy for everything. And Daddy, of course, is the priest. There's the chapel paradigm where there's 2 or 3 people that pull the strings and everybody runs to them. And then there's the paradigm where you all work together, decision making is shared to the extent possible. There's consensus and so forth. So which of those 3 paradigms exists here? Fear, of course, is a barrier, an obstacle. People don't fear change as much as they fear loss. Because sometimes things happening, it's perceived of them that you're going to lose something. So that's where fear of loss comes in. You need leaders, and you need to develop leaders. So both clergy and laity, that has to be a constant process. An obstacle is a parish that lacks a clear plan, a roadmap. There are practical obstacles like facility issues and so forth. An important obstacle barrier to ask yourselves about is, are we balanced? Are we focusing on the essentials or the non-essentials? Where is our focus? Another obstacle is stagnation. There's not a lot of new flow of water coming in, right? There's gridlock. We consider the parish our universe. We don't think the universe is our parish. Our parish is the universe, our universe, that's it, rather than the universe being our parish. And of course, resistance and sabotage are obstacles, really difficult to overcome. So, any of those obstacles or barriers that I mentioned, the case here?
I think we're the third of your parish types. I don't think we're a daddy parish. I don't think we're the chapel parish. But I think that we kind of, obviously Father Michael's our leader and our father.
Right.
Trying to lead me there. But I feel like we're moving together. I'm curious about the last obstacle you mentioned, sabotage.
Yeah.
Can you give some examples of that? Because I don't think I've seen that here.
It's really
not to give anybody ideas. But
So resistance is simply just pushing back against implementing changes, right? Sometimes that can be the case of a whole culture of the parish, right? There's a saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Without the right culture, you're not going to get anything done, right? Maybe there are certain norms and customs. People are just used to doing things in the same way, a certain way. I love the example that Father Evan uses. So when people enter into the narthex of the church, in the Greek church, parishes like mine, there can be two scenarios. One is they walk in, and on the left and the right, there's a candle box with somebody behind it doing transactions. Give me $1, give you a candle. And then there's parishes where the candle box is pushed back against the wall, and there's somebody in front of it. Now, the better of the two is which?
In front, the one lighting the candle.
In front, right. You're not walking into a store and buying a pack of gum. You're in the church, right? Somebody there to greet you, ask you questions. Well, Father Evan tried to move the candle box to the wall. Well, this guy, he went nuts. Because he was the guy behind the wall all the time. He came to church just for that. It's like the Everybody Loves Raymond episode where, they go to church just to hang out in the narthex and talk to their buddies and do candles and collect the money and stuff like that. So that was really bad, right? The guy just could not. We've always done it this way. I don't want to do it this way. I don't want to do the change. So, all right. So the most aggressive form of resistance is sabotage. It's willful obstruction. Willful obstruction. So I haven't seen it in churches. Well, I have. Back in the early, in Seattle, there was a church, and the priest, he wanted to introduce a little bit of English in the service. That Sunday he came to church, and they changed the locks. He wasn't able to get into church, the liturgy. The parish had changed the locks. Willful obstruction. So they went 1.3 miles down the road and built a second church, St. Demetrius, Assumption City. Because of that. That's sabotage, right? Willful obstruction. Change the locks, yeah.
I would say moving on, that our structure and our facilities are a barrier for us. That we've outgrown what we have. We're at the birth size. So we have this big building project that we have as our dream, and how do we make it a reality?
Yeah. They say if you're 80% full, you're full. And that people will stop coming or not come because you're too full, right?
I would say I'm relatively new. It's coming in our 4th year being in the church. I would say that we're more currently kind of a chapel, but we're evolving to more of a community. I think the direction and the trending is right. We're developing leaders,
yeah.
But we still have a little bit of maybe internal knowledge and maybe a little bit tribalism in areas that's slowly starting to filter down so that not a few people are bearing the majority of the load of the church.
Yeah, good, thank you for that. I would say the majority of parishes are like that still. Any other potential obstacles?
What would you say in your experience would be like that time frame for churches to sort of evolve into the ideal, right?
7 years.
Okay. From mission, from start.
Oh, no, I'm talking about
from
beginning your strategic plan and achieving goals.
I'm speaking more on like the
on average
age of a church to be because that's at first like few, and when you have more people to pull from, then you have, I think, more opportunities to spread the load.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, but
yeah.
I think that's sort of how we've evolved. Is just there's early on just a handful,
yeah.
And I do believe that we've transferred. We've passed the baton a few times now in some of those key positions, and I think that's healthy. But I think what Constantine's referring to is very accurate. Like to really even every our ministries out and spread it all out to keep from burnout.
Yeah, I would say it's going to take about that many years to do that.
You mentioned that if we need to close the doors and what the community will remember about us. And of course, you mentioned the Food Creek Festival.
Yeah.
What do you think would be the good reason to be remembered for? Because I think that's the way to reach out to the community and to, spread the word.
Our parish is a place of healing, and people get healed here. Our parish is a place of transformation. People come and they're transformed. Our parish is a welcoming parish. We welcome new people and love on it. That was a really friendly, welcoming place, experience in that. So we're going to get into it, but that's the place where I've experienced the most beautiful worship I've ever experienced in my whole life. Reading a book by Carlos Lasware, blessed memory, called The Inner Kingdom. In the first chapter, he talks about his own conversion to Orthodoxy. And it was just by stepping into this broken, not very, on the outside, looking kind of shabby building that was dark and cold. And he says, I knew from the moment I stepped into that place, this was heaven on earth. And even though he didn't convert for 6 more years, he said that was his experience. So yeah, those would be some of the places. Or that's the place that cares for the poor, or, yeah, so there's lots of different things. Yes?
I think one obstacle is how fluent and how people want to live here. It's so comfortable to live here that it makes, you'll look outside on Sundays and see as many people walking as there are in church, walking around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a really comfortable place to live. And when you're in comfort, obviously, you don't seek those things that are salvation.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge obstacle here, though. It's been like the last 10 years that I've went to this place, or best places to live.
Yeah. It's
So
always
how do you combat that, right?
Yeah. It's always a shock to me when on Pascha every year, when the first service is Agape Vespers, and we do it like 11:30, 12 noon, and that's the only Sunday of the year where I'm driving to church at like 11:15. Every year it just kills me because like there's people. Look at all these people. It's just it's a shock to me every year. I know, I can't get over it. Well, if we become the church and fulfill the mission and the purpose of the church, we'll be here for them when they need us, I guess. Right? Right? So. Or rather, this goes to missions and evangelism. Anyway, that is for another. I tell you, that's for another weekend because it's a whole different. We'll touch on it.
That was actually kind of where my mind is going is missions and evangelism a little bit because I mean we just started doing feeding the homeless here, which I think is beautiful, right? But we don't have a lot of outward reach. I don't think about our community. I think people know Father Michael and see him, and he's our outward reach. But as far as the parish goes, and other Father Michael too, you know, I did met him, and it's weird to see a guy walking around in a cassock, and so people are interested. But I don't know. Other than that, how are we reaching? I think that's an obstacle for us as well.
Okay.
Is it? Let me ask you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. This is something that kind of is not clear to my mind, and I'm sure it's. If there is a discussion, the church is not the charity. It's, of course, you care about poor, but it's church's mission is salvation. So, how do you make this to not become,
There must be balance, right? There's got to be balance. Not only between the non-essentials and the essentials. You have to have your focus on the essentials, pay less attention to the non-essentials. But even among the essentials, there has to be balance, right? We're going to talk about this tomorrow, but I think there are five main tasks that God commands the church. And they're tied up into the Great Commandment, the Great Commission. So, these are the ones I can use. All right. So, what is the Great Commandment? What's the Great Commandment? Two things. Love God. Love neighbor. The first two things we should be about is worship. We should be a worshiping community. A Eucharistic.
Can't see
it. You better use the black.
Well, I'll talk about it. So, the first and foremost thing we should be about is worshiping God, because we love Him. We adore Him. That's what worship is. The second thing we need to be part of what we do is service to others, philanthropia, philoxania, all these virtues, right? Love for our fellow man. Service. All right, what's the Great Commission? Go and make disciples of all nations, baptize them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teach them the things that I've commanded you, right? 3 things.
Is this right?
Yeah. No, service ago. Oh, I'm sorry. Great commission. Number one, go and tell, witness, materia. Baptize them, bring them into community, fellowship, number two. That you put baptism in fellowship, that's okay. Koinonia.
Number three.
Teach them, discipleship.
Teach.
Second.
Teach, disciple, yeah. So to your question, a parish, these to me are the essential, these are the 5 essential. That's balanced in these 3 things, these 5 things. Is a healthy parish, is a growing parish, is a thriving parish. Do you have any questions about any of these 5? Yes.
How organized is it necessary to be to accomplish those goals, or is a healthy parish going to just organically? Is that going to just happen?
So, in my experience, the best strategic plan is built in these 5 areas with goals. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goals around worship. We want to increase our weekly worship services. We want to feed the homeless. Witness. We're going to create a missions and evangelism team, ministry of our parish, or a welcoming team, goals around that. Fellowships. How do we spend time outside of liturgy to get to know one another better, right? One idea is something called Supper for 6, where 3 couples schedule a monthly dinner outside the parish. Just get together for dinner. Or a game night, or a parish movie night. And then discipleship. Discipleship has got to be adult ed, children's ed, that goes year-round, right? There has to be catechism classes, there have to be classes for choirs. There has to be, discipleship has to be a part of that picture. So anyway, so specific goals in these 5 areas is the best way to go, to me, to build a strategic plan for the parish. Yes, Father Michael.
Father Jerry, I'm curious, I take a while to process this, so I'm like a question behind this one, but when you mentioned what would be a statement of what you would want to be known if you were no longer there, right? Yeah. And you mentioned a place of healing or a place of transformation, and I am curious, just from the parish itself, would you say that you've experienced healing or transformation through the life of the parish? I mean, could you raise your hand so I could see if that's true for you? And part of why I ask that is I sort of feel like there has to be a coherence between what you already are and where you're going. And I'm excited to see. I mean, I would have said that too, but it's nice to hear that that's what you're experiencing too, that you could say to someone, this is a place of healing, or this is a transformation, because that's happened to me. So I just was curious about that, Father Jerry.
Which, Father Michael, will be the best witness. It's not knocking on the doors, going door to door, handing out pamphlets on the corner. Sharing my story, my personal story that I own, with someone I care about. Not getting into arguments about right, wrong, good, bad. I just want to share my story. I'm going to share my story, my personal story. This is something we did a couple of years back, Father Michael, at the end of liturgy, the kids would go off to Sunday school. And then I would just ask somebody in the parish to get up and share their journey. You guys do it on your website. And I tell you, those are some of the most impactful moments of the life of the church. Just, we had a guy recently who was this close to dying from a drug overdose. This close. Tattooed, piercings, the whole thing. Right? He told his story. Man, oh man, talk about transformation. Talk about change. Talk about healing. Unbelievable. Now his mom is Orthodox, his 3 kids are Orthodox, his girlfriend's going to become Orthodox, right? Witness. But Father Michael, I'm gladly glad. You need to stand up and stretch for a second? Would that be helpful? Want to stretch for? No? You're okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to get a sip of water, so go ahead. Okay, don't leave to stretch.
I have some spray.
All right, let's reboot now. So Chris mentioned that the metropolis of San Francisco has a ministry team that focuses on missions and evangelism. Actually, the founder of that ministry, Catherine Lingus, just reposed the other day. And anyway, we have a large team of lay people and clergy that focus on missions and evangelism and try to provide parishes and people and priests with tools, resources for how to witness. Anyway, the website for our ministry is groworthodoxy.org. Groworthodoxy.org. A lot of great stuff on there, so I would encourage you to go in your free time and check out that website. You can also subscribe to our. We sort of have a group that we communicate with. We do kind of monthly Zoom calls where we talk about how to start a welcoming team or how to come up with an evangelism season. There's a parish in Prescott, Arizona that has a whole season devoted to evangelism and all the things that they did. I just spoke with the priest of that parish recently in Prescott, Arizona, Father Jeffrey Freight, and he told me that they have to have Saturday and Sunday services now. There's so many people that they can't fit everybody in on Sunday worship. So he's doing Sunday and Saturday liturgies every weekend just because there's so many people. And Prescott, Arizona is kind of a retirement town. It's not, it's kind of out in the boonies. So many people. He's having to do 2 services a weekend.
So you're having trouble finding smoke.
All right. So I want to pick up with where Father Michael kind of left us off. And I want to talk about what stories or narratives have shaped 3 hierarchs. What are the stories that we tell, that you tell and are retold? Stories, they reveal the culture, they reveal the parish's DNA. Stories reveal the parish's values, actual values and idealized values. Stories kind of reveal current practices. Stories also reveal competing commitments. Stories shape reality and form actual beliefs. Stories affirm and they challenge and they create tension between actual and idealized. So I want to do an exercise with you called Tell Me a Story. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to tell me a story. And then maybe a volunteer to come up here. And what I'm hoping to do with this exercise is to extract what the core values are of 3 hierarchs by the stories you tell. But you have to tell the stories. I can't tell your story. You have to tell your story. So I hope there's 6 questions. I hope people offer multiple stories for each question. All right. Ready? The first question? Tell me a story from your parish's history about a hero or heroine.
Andrew put in a huge effort to get us our fellowship hall. When we were first moving here, we were in bad shape. We needed a place to go, and Andrew was out here. I mean, like, stayed overnight in his camper out here to get us into that place.
Was it a squatter or something?
He needed a place to stay.
And
the same time period, the pit that's underneath this building there was black plastic, and it kept snowing, and it kept melting. There was like thick ice, and Bill Lewis was out here breaking up the ice, throwing it out of the pit so that we could get this building around the foundation. Like 85 years old out there breaking ice.
Yeah.
I think historically we can all speak to that, coming and getting that house over there, throwing stuff out the windows in the snow, just waiting to get ready so that we could start having liturgy here.
Yeah. So, Father, we were displaced. We were in a location. I don't know if you know our story.
I know.
As far as this goes, like,
yeah.
It was April 1st, was it, Father Michael, when we were given notice that we needed to vacate our church because we were in a rental space down on the main Wenatchee Avenue in a strip mall, basically. That was what was available when we needed our church space.
Been there. Done that.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
What, 5 years, Father, before that? 6 years. And so we were established and growing there. And we had a month. And Pascha was at the end of the month that year. It's literally the weekend after Pascha, we were supposed to be out, and they didn't want to renew the lease, kind of thing.
You thought it was an April Fool's joke.
I mean, we really did. What do we do?
Yeah.
Well, so what we're talking about here was a small church community that rose to the occasion because we had purchased this property prior to that, and we needed a place to go, and so, like Robin said, we came together for that effort, and there are a lot of heroes. There were a lot of heroes that were made because of the need and the love for our church and just selfless acts of giving of time and talent. It was really special.
Father, talking what Andy is saying, at that time we didn't know where to go, and so I volunteered my house, which was big enough. And we had just baptized a large family of 10 kids and mom and dad. Well, I had to go to my neighbors and let them know that I was going to have church service. But after they're baptized, they came to church in their white robes. So here is this big family walking down the street coming into my house. I had to explain to everybody what we were, but it all worked out. We were there for about 3 or 4 months. But we got through it and nobody complained.
We also worshipped in a funeral home.
Yes.
After we got kicked out of the storefront.
Yeah, that's why we were remodeling the fellowship house. We did church in there for, what was it, a month or two? Before this building, this space was finished.
It was longer than that.
It was not.
We did Pascha in there.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Molly and I got married in here shortly after the first service, and that
Right.
was Labor Day weekend.
You cannot imagine how was the fellowship before we remodeled, Came home, I said, this should be raised to the ground. It was so bad, the ceiling, the walls, everything was torn apart, and you cannot believe that this is looking like it's looking now.
We had service over there before it became the fellowship.
Yep.
We had our Pascha service in that little house over there.
How about you? Yeah. Any more hero stories?
Yeah, we were tearing the walls out. We were finding whole newspapers that were used as insulation in the walls. And at that time, I worked for the Wenatchee World newspaper, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
The dated newspaper.
The dated newspaper and everything. They were using that insulation in the walls.
It was 1946. The newspaper was from the 1940s.
Yeah.
I would volunteer my wife as a hero for finding this property. And then there were some heroes involved in making it happen. Because the purchase kind of fell through, and then God brought us back to the negotiating table. And we paid off the property in a year. And that was a lot of heroes.
So what values come out of that, those stories? Persistence? Maybe you value persistence?
Perseverance.
Perseverance?
Oh, that's.
Family. You know, we all came together.
All coming together, right?
Freezing cold out, you know?
Community,
Winter,
basically.
Yeah, and we had a goal.
What other values?
Resiliency.
Resiliency.
Yeah.
Humility.
Humility. Other values coming out?
I heard sacrifice a lot.
Sacrifice. Selflessness.
Loyalty.
Loyalty.
I think overall it's love. Overall, it's like, you know, people love their church, their faith.
Yeah.
And it makes them do that.
Selflessness. I guess you put that to church. Any other values?
Oh, no, I'm just gonna bump back a bit, but just when I come in here and it's clean, and you never see anybody clean, but it's clean. The trash can is put out, candles are lit. There's a lot of stuff that happens to make this happen. And I mean, that's the people. And I heard love, you know, dedication, selflessness.
Dedication.
I have to tell a story. We also have difficulty getting into the storefront and finding the storefront. I won't tell the whole story, but the city said you can't do it, and we had to meet with the mayor, I mean. But we got the storefront, but it was kind of a mess, and the carpet was going to have to be pulled up and so forth. And I came to the new property for some reason, and I found the 4 oldest members, you could say, of the community on their hands and knees scraping the glue off of the floor so that we could put new flooring or carpeting. So there's a lot of stories like that.
You value hard work, I think. All right, ready for the second question? Tell me a story from your parish's history about a cherished moment. A moment you'll always remember. A moment that permanently imprinted something on your heart or mind. Cousin.
My story, when we came to the church, it was kind of, the pandemic was going, so we didn't have regular church services. But my wife had been inquiring with Father Michael, unbeknownst to me, even though secretly I was really excited. I knew a little bit about Orthodoxy, so I was kind of happy with another story. But I just remember, because we weren't doing services, we still wanted to meet and kind of do something. So Father Michael and his wife Macrina invites me over to their house for dinner. And I come in and make a little small talk, and Subdeacon Timothy and Molly just show up, unbeknownst to us. And there was just a quality of the fruit from the tree, you can just tell. And at that moment, for me, I just knew we were at the right place. And then slowly, as things got more normal, we just started meeting all the rest of the church, and it was just more of the same. And so for me, that was like, I knew I was at the right place, and that was where I was supposed to be. So that was something that was cherished, and I just always remember.
Their hospitality, maybe?
Yes.
Cherished moment.
I have one, just, Commissioner Deborah. I forced my wife to move to Wenatchee, and really all that excited about it. And when we came for the interview for a job, church is very, very important to us. It's easy being Orthodox when you move because you always know where you're going to go to church in most cases. So we had one choice, and luckily it was, and I guess providentially it was pretty higher. But it was super important for us to meet the priest of the church. And we had emailed, and I think Deborah emailed Father Michael in advance, and he said, come to Vespers on Saturday. And so this was a week or so before. When we came in, the first afternoon, evening, we were in Leavenworth at the place I was going to work, and it was a beautiful, sunny, glorious day. The next day, there was record smoke in this whole area. You couldn't see across the street in some areas. The smoke was so bad, and my wife was so sad that this was where we were moving. She was very, very stressed out. But I was so positive this was God moving in our lives. But just about a week after that, we came to visit with Father Michael. About a week after that, Father Michael sent us numerous pictures of a sunny, clear day in Wenatchee, and that there is beautiful sunshine in Wenatchee. And I think having a priest who has not only a mind and a heart for those that are not Orthodox, but those that are Orthodox, but those that are also knowing that they're struggling with decisions in their lives and making the hard decisions, and that people are in a position of making tough choices in their lives. Having that sense, to me, that's like a defining moment for me. So having God use Father Michael to sending those pictures and saying, it's okay, your son will be out tomorrow. Is that okay, John?
So, it sounds like you value your priests, your clergy.
Father, I have a story. Sorry.
Sarah.
This just happened this weekend, on Sunday, and it just came to mind, but we have a new family in our church, and they have a little boy, Oliver. I'm not sure how old Oliver is, maybe 4 or 5. And we just finished the gospel, and Father Michael McGill comes out to this homily, and Oliver sits in his dad's lap, and he goes, "This is my favorite part." What a beautiful, like our church is all encompassing, like kids are involved and they get it. And that was so cool.
So you value having children part of your worship, part of the worship.
Yeah.
Of course, as the young daughter who asks her pastor father, "Dad, do you ask God to help you, when you give your sermon?" "Yes, dear. I pray and ask for God's help." She said, Why doesn't he help you? That's my daughter.
Well, just to piggyback on that, when we were first exploring And there was a sense of like, what's the place for our children, for our kids? And we'd go home after liturgy, and the kids would be coloring. They'd be like, "We got prayers on birthday, they're singing all of these hymns. Nobody has taught them, right? I mean, they're just absorbing the stuff, and that was a really beautiful moment for us. And like, the kids do have a place, and God is moving in their hearts, and it's not sort of something that I have set up for them, right? It's happening in the life of the church. So
yeah, I just got an email today from a woman who wants to come visit our parish, and she said, don't know anything about Orthodox. I've seen a little online. Is there a children's program? I said, no, our children worship with us. Then afterwards, there's education. Yeah. All right. Other cherished moments.
If I can add something kind of off on what Chuck had mentioned, I heard the use the word providence, and that's kind of something that I felt too. Right? Like my journey to Washington from the Midwest, like shotgunned out applications basically, and as luck would have it, the place I landed was Wenatchee, and I'm kind of I've kind of been a 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door church goer, cradle Orthodox, but just kind of in and out. So, as luck would have it, I landed in Wenatchee, where there's a church 5 minutes from where I live, and that's the only one for 2-3 hours in the area. And as Father Michael knows, I showed up and then I disappeared. I showed up again and then I disappeared. But the fact that this church was here, and that the seed was planted in me long ago, it's kind of providence. So when Chuck used that word, sparked that in me.
I think another really amazing thing, and I know you talked about Greek festivals, and I feel like we do have our little kebab fest, but just the way we all come together and work together, I think that's the best part of it.
Working together.
I have a really good cherished moment, and I think it's historical and cherished. And I've been coming to this church now for going on 15 years. Prior to being baptized, when I first came to Wenatchee, my daughter and my son-in-law lived here, and we started. They had become Orthodox and asked me to go to church with them, and at the time they were meeting in the music room at the Catholic Church. There was only, about 10 of us, 5 of us? Pretty small. Father Michael was coming every other week.
Once a month.
Once a month. And we had another priest that were coming. Other than that, we had just readers. I think that's where I knew I was in the right place, in such a small group of people that just loved God and wanted to come together, and that was the start of this.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. What a blessing, to have that intimacy.
Yeah.
Value intimacy. Yeah. Okay, here, ready for the next question. Tell me a story from your parish's history that describes what you are really all about. What's the one thing that best describes what you're all about?
All of that. All of that. That's it. I have it.
Yes.
This is our third or fourth Orthodox church. We're converts. One thing I really value about three hierarchs is a greater understanding of tradition and why we do things the way we do. and we were gone. I mean, that wasn't happening. I mean, it was happening, the Andrews were doing it,
Yeah.
but we all left. And people were having conversations and talking about the football game as we were walking out the door. We don't do that. I was brought up in a church where after Pascha, you're in a free-for-all for 40 days. You can eat whatever you want, whenever you want. And I found since out that that's not necessarily accurate or true. And so I learned about these things that have much stronger meaning. And fasting is such a more richer experience for me now being here. So I just, one of the things I cherish about it is just Father knows the tradition and he instills it into us every single day. And he does it in love. It doesn't make you feel terrible if you wanted it. At least that's the way I come into it. I don't know why they go out, but I understand.
Tradition. Tradition. I love that. I love that.
I have something, I don't know if it's really a story or just an observation.
I'll share it.
Something I think that's priceless, very valuable in our parish is an authenticity and honesty with each other and integrity and just kind of an openness of heart. The people here, like I can speak for my experience with the women. I've never been with a group of women that don't repeat or talk about things. Like if I share something really that's going on in my life, nobody else knows about it unless I come and tell that other person. It's never like traveling through. And there's just a level of respect and love for each other that's very real. I don't see the fake humility or the fake, wanting to put on air. I just see a lot of people honestly wanting to pursue their faith and treat each other well with love. So I don't find that anywhere else but here.
So I heard authenticity, genuineness, openness, and
vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
The trust that lets you be vulnerable.
Trust, you got it. Yeah. Respect. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful.
Home. Feels like home.
Yes.
So you asked about a story that would kind of encapsulate.
Something that describes what you're all about.
And I think you've heard it a number of times. We talked about the different traveling churches thing.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we kept ending up back at Abona and Creda's house and doing services there. And I think sometimes, when we have a space, it's easy to take it for granted, but boy, you take it away from us and we get really tenacious about holding the services.
Tenacity.
It just explodes.
The tenacity?
Yeah, but it's more about that. It's about a love.
Devotion to worship.
Devotion to worship. Okay. Great.
One, I don't know, but something that really sticks with me is, so when I came in here, we had like 4 families that were a big part of the church and were a big part of the life of the church. And they felt that they had to move to be somewhere else. And so it was in a very short amount of time. So it was a big kind of body blow to the church. And we all grieved because we loved them so much, want them to be close to us. But in the sense on the other sense is that then I saw the church really pull itself together and didn't let that define us. And we kind of redoubled our effort to really welcome and prepare for be welcoming to new people and to really redouble our efforts for our own bonds. And I think it's been a big growth of the church, of us to build those roots deeper And I think that grieving period's gone. Now, when we see them, it's a great joy and elation to see them and they're growing in their life, and then knowing that we are growing as well, and we're all growing, kind of still having that strong love and affection. And so that was something I thought was really good and healthy to see the church do that, even though it was, at the time, it just seemed like a lot was being taken.
Sure.
I think we've heard this, but when I think of our church, I think of our church family. And we're very welcoming to people who come. I hear that from our visitors, I really feel like I was welcomed. And that to me is really special. I've been to a lot of Protestant churches where I just felt like I was. If anybody's sitting alone, Father Michael will make sure somebody goes and talks to them.
Yeah, if you want to get me mad, the best way to do it is to ignore visitors.
Angels unaware, right? Right, tell me a story, one that says, this is the moment when I was most proud of us. What's your proudest moment as a parish? Tell me a story about that.
I think when our new Father Michael was ordained, we had a grown clergyman.
Any other moments? Anything from the Kebab Fest?
I'm really proud that I started a trend in kilt wearing. I'm going to be big.
I always feel a little bit of pride every liturgy when the call for the catechumens to come up, just to see if they'll all fit in one line. I think they call each other to make sure they're not more than like 15 at a time here.
When something happened in my family, a tragedy just this past year, I was proud to be a part of this parish. So, yeah, everyone came together and supported us, and
Supporting one another.
Support.
Thank you for sharing that.
Also, Molly is like really, I feel like a rock of our chanter corps. There's been some times where she's been gone for reasons, and to really see the people develop without her and be able to rise to the occasion, I think it's been an amazing transformation, and it's been, just shows that more of that resilience. I think that's been another thing that's been great. It's not so, it's a flow, but it's we still have a lot of love for that, so people show it.
that's not me, Molly. That's the other Molly.
Where's the other one? She's not been sleeping well, and so she didn't have it in her tonight.
All right, Father Michael.
When COVID hit, camp couldn't happen for the youth, and so we did parish championship, spread out all over everything. But a lot of people showed up, and we did hikes, and people showed up to be there with the kids, which I thought was really cool. And we've done other things since that time, where the whole parish, or I wouldn't say the whole parish, but much of the parish has shown up for supporting the youth group. And that's a really fun.
You usually go to Camp St. Mary? Is that where you usually go? Or?
Camp St. Mary of Egypt, yeah.
So
what was the question?
A story that says, this is the moment when I was most proud of us.
Father?
Yes.
This might be a hero story also, and it's something very small, but it's something I think about a lot. This was during COVID, and there was only like 20 people at a service. It might have been like a weekday service. And Father Michael came out to read the gospel, and there were no altar servers, because there was only like 20 people here. But Bill Lodos came from all the way in the back, picked up a candle, and went and stood and held it right there. And it just makes me want to cry every time I think about it. But every time I see an altar server come out now with a candle, at any parish, I think about Bill going up there and standing in the front, and he holds the candle out of the candle stand, and he just stood there while the gospel was being read. And I just think it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But anyways, it's going to make me cry thinking about it.
Sounds like you value your founders. Your generation, all generations.
But I know I said that my most proud was when we produced our first clergy, but Constantine hit at it when he talked about Molly being away and people stepping up. But oftentimes, and I get to sit there, and most of our altar servers are my godsons, and so they're really awesome.
You can order them around.
Well, no, but
yeah,
so
yeah, he does.
And I think that that's one of the things that really makes me proud is that it's the children in our church that are stepping up to those things.
Yeah.
And it's huge. Simeon, I mean, it's just a rock back here.
And what a godly example Bill set, huh? With that kid.
Yes.
Okay, fifth question. Tell me a story from your parish's history. One that says, "This is when I knew I had found my people."
Well, I don't know. I think this fits. Early on, I think, I don't know if it was when I was coming once a month or if it was later, but I went to Margaret's house to visit and to get to know her a little bit, and she told me that she had been praying for 50 years for a church in Wenatchee. And that's always stayed with me. That, the reason we have a church here is because of people like her and her prayers. And Bill and Florence and Bill's sister, Kula, who came from Greece to Wenatchee, expecting to see Orthodox churches, of course.
On every corner.
And it didn't happen. But 50 years later, or 6, I don't know, sorry, getting the math wrong. But when I first came to visit and we advertised in the newspaper, they came, and it's just like they just were back in the Orthodox village outside of Corinth. And they just never missed after that.
Yeah. Wow.
When that was in the paper, that's how I found the church.
Yeah.
And that Saturday I came, and that was the weekend that Father Michael was in a car accident. And I got to the door, and there was a sign saying, "No church today. There was an accident," and I was scared that he wasn't going to be able to come back ever, and I would never get my church. But he did.
But for some of you that are newer to the parish or maybe catechumens, was there a moment when it's like, oh, yeah, these are my people? You know, I see a place for myself here.
For me, when I was, my wife invited me down to, we weren't married at the time, invited me down on the avenue in the church that was on the avenue. And I walked in and I could barely breathe because of the sensing.
There's fire coming in, I think.
It just overwhelmed me. I was coughing and everything, and going through the service, I was totally confused. But knowing this is where I need to be, because I've been to other churches and I call them the dog and pony show, where it's, you know, play the drums and everything else, and they sing a cappella here. And it's completely different. And it made a big difference for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been coming here for a couple years, and I studied Orthodox online for about a year, and I finally had the nerve to email the church, and Father Michael right away met up with me and invited me to a Vespers, and spent about 40 minutes just talking to me before Vespers. And of course I was nervous because this is so foreign to any other type of church I'd been to, and he said just go in there and just do whatever you're comfortable with, and nobody's going to worry about you and what you're familiar with and what you do. And I just came in, and it's exactly how I felt, and I felt loved and not judged and welcomed from that moment. And I've heard that Father Michael really pushed us having the meal after liturgy, and I feel that it's so important because I went to that after the first liturgy I attended, and these relationships that just are hard for me to build, just continue to build each Sunday.
Yeah. The liturgy after the liturgy.
Yeah. So what you just said about Callistos Ware, his experience going into a church and just knowing he was home. When I started coming in 2013, my 35-year-old marriage had just ended. I was pretty much homeless. And I have a friend that I've known since I was 3 years old, and he'd met Father Michael in Spokane. And he grabbed me by the arm and he says, you need to meet this person. And he took me in. I think Father Michael was in the church that day, and I walked in and I saw the icons, and I felt like I was surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, and I knew I was home. And those weren't the people I talked to. Well, I do talk to them, I guess. They're not the people that I eat with, I guess. Is that right? But they became my family right away. I mean, if you go in my house, I have a lot of icons. I feel like the saints are my family. But this is my family too. And the people who were there took such good care of me. I was ashamed of my life at that point. I was at the lowest point I could have been, and these people just embraced me and I don't know, maybe saved my life, but it was a healing experience for me.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to get back to, a young woman emailed me a year ago. I'd like to come and visit your church, but I have blue hair. Will I be accepted there? And I wrote her back, hey, I'm just thankful I have hair. It can be any color you want. Yeah, you're welcome.
Just talk about newer people. We've only been here about 4 years or what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the previous churches we've been to were much larger, and they all have a certain character. I think every church building has a certain thing. The first church, it was all about coffee hour. I mean, it was full-blown meals. I mean, it was just like, it was a machine. Then the second church was programs. They had liturgy, they had services morning and evenings and outreaches, and it was just huge in Roseville, California. And then coming here was much smaller, but for the size of the church, I was here by myself for many months. I was getting invited to people's homes. I'm just some weird guy who lives up in the woods in Leavenworth. And they just, I was invited, and then we got here, people just were reaching out to us pretty consistently. And then whenever my wife was out of town, I got invited
just cared. And then just another one quick thing is that, like my daughter mentioned that, we had some stuff going on in our family and, you know, there's just some stuff that's just happened and I just needed, right after liturgy, I just needed to leave. I just had some stuff just going on. And, I was probably 30 or 40 minutes away and Michael Kelly called me and just said, I just want to make sure you're doing okay. So I haven't been to a church like that, and any Orthodox church like that. So it's just that people seem to know when to call, and they seem to care.
Yeah. Beautiful. Did you have your hand up in the back?
Well, I was going to say it's been really great for, I know a lot of us here that have been here for some time, and as the church grew, we got to grow with it too, with salvation, with our own salvation, and also grow as the church grows. Like our, you know, we didn't have a deacon for a long time. Father Michael was doing a lot of service by himself.
Yeah.
Then we got a sub-deacon, and then we got eventually a deacon, and then a second priest. And it's all, we're all just, everything's growing together, the church, us too. It's just an amazing thing. And, I think that's one of the biggest things, that it's not just me, right, that's growing, it's everyone else is, and you definitely feel that here. I know a lot of other places, it's more like Protestant church I ever went to, or it's compartmentalized a lot, you know, the church has done a day, and then you don't get into those deeper things, and here you definitely get to see all this stuff we all went through and stuff. You definitely know this is your house, your home, where you belong.
Great. You know the story about knowing that you had found your people? Yes.
I'll share one from someone who's only been here for a few months. It was a couple of weeks back, just leaving Vespers, and Tula was walking outside, and so I decided I'd go say hi to her and introduce myself. And I said, "Hi, I'm Stephen," and she said, "You were here with your dad, huh?" And I said, "Yeah, I was a couple of years ago." She says, I thought about where have you been? Your dad said you would be coming here.
Uh-oh, you are in trouble. A Greek guy, are you kidding me? You're in trouble, boy.
I know. I've been out of church for a while, and you know, I'm starting to get back into it now. Exactly. So I said exactly what you wrote. So I said, but she said, "You know what? I'm just glad you're here now." So now she's like my Wenatchee Aya, right?
Yes. They are the youngest, but the founders and the oldest, but the youngest of the family. And the founders, they are an example how they are present and in spirit and in physical, you know, exercising the help, and it's amazing.
You're welcome.
There's that Greek comedian that tells a joke about going home to his grandmother's house with his buddy, and he did something wrong, and his grandmother was speaking to him in Greek, and his friend was like, "Wow, your grandmother's really upset. What did she say?" He says, "La fax xilo," which means, translated, literally means, "You're going to eat some wood right now." and the friend's like, she gonna make you eat some wood? He took it literally. It's not just a sort of expression. When you're in trouble, you're gonna eat some wood. All right, last question. Tell me a story from your parish's history, one that describes your unique gift or particular gifting that expresses God's love and extends God's grace to the world.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, could you?
Tell me a story from your parish's history, one that describes your unique gift or particular gifting that expresses God's love and extends God's grace to the world. So this is the gift, maybe, I mean, you've already mentioned a bunch of things about being welcoming and loving on visitors and loving one another, but is there kind of a one gifting that?
Is this when we mentioned the kebab fest?
I would say one gift, if you talk to everybody, is that I think we all accept and understand that we're a fallen state, and through that acceptance, that we all miss the mark from time to time, but we're all trying to meet that, ungraspable standard, which is, Jesus. That takes away. I've never felt like judged, or that we judge people, or that we don't see that we're just as wicked as other people can be as well. And there's a humility in that. So I think that's one thing, even if like people in their private lives or professional lives, there's a lot of variance here, but it does feel like there's a baseline family and love and acceptance of that. And I think that brings our worship together closer, because with that kind of, it's just kind of in the air. I just think that it's a lot more focused and serious, and I think that builds on the family and that tissue that kind of connects everybody.
I like that.
I think the prayer life of our church, but I think everybody has a deep prayer life individually, and you feel it when we come together. You feel it when there's need for prayer, and I think that extends. Father Michael said that's
started 50
that's
years.
A gift to the world.
Started 50 years ago.
Yes. Yes.
Forgiveness. I came one day. I just showed up. I didn't tell anybody I was coming. I just popped in, and I have a lot of family that attend here, and it was a surprise to them. Quite a big surprise because I have no background in religion at all. And then one of the things I remember the most is it Forgiveness Sunday? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just loved everybody. It was just so forgiving everyone. Yeah, it was lovely. Forgiveness.
The world could use humility, it could use forgiveness, it could use all these things that you've mentioned.
Our faith really unites us.
Prayer.
I'm sorry.
No good.
Talking.
No good.
For instance, Pascha or Sunday of Orthodoxy, I notice when we're presenting our icons to the world, and this is like a busy street on Western Avenue, and I would think that somebody might be bashful about it or somebody might be self-conscious, but I don't sense that at all in anybody. I just feel love of the moment that we're having together as a church. And sometimes I wonder what people would think, but not because I'm embarrassed or self-conscious. I'm hopeful that somebody might find it beautiful or have a question about it. I don't know how you classify that quality.
Sounds like you value the Orthodox faith.
Absolutely.
You value your faith. Yeah.
I think that's the thing that we have to offer. This area is just an authentic Orthodox Christian culture. And nobody else has it. I mean,
right.
Our gift is really God's gift, of the Orthodox faith. It's not
meant to be shared, not kept to ourselves.
Yeah. And nobody else has it, and so it's sometimes very easy just invite people to the church I like to meet people at the church before a church service, or and the church, the icons and the remnant of the incense and the prayers that are still hanging out here just makes a huge impression. You know, I've had people walk in and just start sobbing from the presence of God.
Yes.
Well, I love this Orthodox church so much, and one of the reasons is that, like, if you go to other churches or other places and you ask them to pray for you, like Protestant churches, that they'll just think about you. But here, like, everybody will actually pray for you.
Through the prayers. Yes.
Well, Jerry, one gift we have here big time is when we do something, we do it like at such a high level. Whether you go sing at an old folks home for Christmas carols or Kebab Fest or Christopher House or any event we do together, it's always at such a high level. And there's a lot of places that just put on stuff, I think, and I feel like that, but it's always a high level every time you get something from them. And we had this one thing, we had a movie theater about the Shroud of Turin, and it's just this huge, we had the whole theater checked out, and a bunch of people came. Just every time we do something like that, and I think that's one of our biggest strengths too, is if we're gonna hold something, everyone that comes here, come here, they're gonna know it's gonna be a top shelf, great event. And
Yeah, you value excellence.
Excellence, yeah.
I love it. To make my job easier tomorrow.
There is one hero I think I want to mention. I think it's just really important. Is also Michelle, who takes a lot of our photos, and that's something I think that's really important for other people that follow us to see. And it's a lot. I mean, she really captures a lot of beautiful moments. It's another hero that I think it's kind of unsung, but I don't know how she does it. I just feel like most times she's praying, so I don't know how she fits it. Always have the right moments and the right angle, but she does a really good job.
She also does a weekly newsletter, but she always has the story of the saint, pictures of all of us doing things, or individual stories about our lives and who we are, and that's her too. She's definitely.
Sounds like you value stewardship or the giving of time, talent.
I want to say also here is Timothy, and I know there's other people here that could speak to it better than I, but I have come here early just because I've gotten off work and been here early, and Timothy's always been here writing everything, getting everything ready. He's one of those church angels. So I hear so much from everybody.
It's church fairy.
Church fairy. But I always hear from other people who serve here how helpful he is with the kids and everything. So.
I think if you take the collective of the stories that you've heard here, and our unique gift, I think, is bringing people into the Orthodox faith. I mean, we have some great people that come here, but this church is grown by people with, myself, a convert from Protestant, but recently we got people walking off the street that have no spiritual, religious affiliation, understanding at all. Father had to explain who the heck Adam was. You know, I think that's our particular gift. It happens. I think somebody mentioned the catechisms up here, and I mean, I know I've been back and I like to whisper to fathers and stuff. And we always say we want to see a miracle, but this is a miracle.
Absolutely.
You know, you have a completely secularized world, a very nominal Protestant town that is, dyed in the wool. And to watch that, that's amazing. I think that's our gift. I think that's what we are.
Great. We should. So just kind of give you a preview for tomorrow. Like I said, the stories, the narratives we tell, they really kind of shape. They can really shape. When we get to doing strategic planning tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to do, in the morning, we're going to talk about, do something called a SWOT analysis. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What opportunities externally are there and what threats externally are there? And then from that, we're going to, I didn't see that you had a vision statement or a mission statement. So we're going to talk about mission and vision. And then in the afternoon, we're going to actually do the work of actually coming up with a set of goals for you're going to come up with a set of goals for your parish that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And so by the end of our time together, you will have a plan, a strategic plan. So the strategic plan addresses three things. Where are we now? What is our desired future state? And how we're going to get there? Okay. So hopefully by the end of tomorrow, we'll have a plan. Again, I said in my introduction that my hope is that I start you out on this journey, set you out on a path that leads you forward in a positive way. So that's the goal for tomorrow. 9 o'clock? Hours? Third hour?
8:30.
8:30?
First and third, and then 9 is the first session.
Everybody got it? Thank you very much.
Go back, Father. You want to leave?